Good morning, buenos días. The Inter-American Development Bank and the Costa Rican Investment Promotion Agency, CINDE, welcome you to the webinar, The Power of Collaborative Nearshoring Ecosystems to Drive True Sustainable Productivity. This event will be conducted in English with interpretation into Spanish. Si desea escuchar el evento en español, haga clic en el icono del mundo en la parte inferior de su pantalla y seleccione el idioma. During this webinar, we will be sharing a series of polls for the audience to answer, for which we would very much value your input and participation. The questions will pop up later in the middle of your screen. To start the session, I am glad to introduce CINDE's Managing Director, Mr. Jorge Sequeira. Mr. Jorge Sequeira, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, good morning to everyone, and welcome. Mr. Carlos Alvarado, President of Costa Rica, Mr. Mauricio Claver Caron, President of the Inter-American Development Bank, appreciated panelists and speakers. We value your time and willingness to participate today in this important event. Thank you so much. Supply chain disruptions from the COVID-19 pandemic have stimulated closeness to end markets. This, in turn, is reshaping supply chains such that they become more lean and more resilient. And the question we all ask ourselves is, will this result in a nearshoring outburst? And if so, which geographies are better prepared and have the proven track record to support those companies that decide to relocate operations closer to their end markets and customers? That is what we're here to talk about today. And why Costa Rica? Well, Costa Rica is home to over 330 multinational companies from high value added services and manufacturing sectors. In fact, many of you here today might be surprised to learn that our top experts are medical devices, IT-related and IT-enabled services. These multinational companies, together with the local suppliers and academia, have consolidated an ecosystem where human talent, sustainability, and technology coexist to build better solutions for the customers, be they internal or external. And this ecosystem proved its response, resilience, and reimagined capabilities in the middle of the pandemic. Manufacturing operations, including essential life sciences and advanced manufacturing companies, as well as the internal supply chains and logistics that they depend on, were never interrupted. In the services sector, 98% of the 80,000 employees were able to shift to work from home in a matter of 3 days with no business interruptions. That is resilience. In fact, as the world battled to overcome the severe global crisis that hit us, we created 20,000 new jobs, an all-time record. Medical device exports grew 8% to 3.9 billion, and IT-related and IT-enabled services grew 6% to 5.1 billion. Costa Rica proved to the world that it was ready for business in the hardest of times, and companies were watching. And as these companies entered the reimagined stage to decide where to make their next move, Costa Rica has a triple bottom line value proposition to offer: people, planet, and prosperity. I will touch very briefly on each one of these 3 Ps. People. By far the most important reason multinationals choose Costa Rica is its talent pool. For almost 2 centuries, we have invested in education as a top priority for our people. And 70 years ago, when we became the first country in the world to abolish the army by constitution, we took those resources and invested them in health and education. Today, we invest almost 8% of our GDP in education, almost twice the 4.45% world average. In fact, the IDB is a strong partner of CINDE in talent development. We're deploying an innovative platform that uses artificial intelligence to boost talent development and skills for the future, which will impact at least 30,000 citizens. We're also providing scholarships for the 4th Industrial Revolution academic programs and boot camps to thousands of young beneficiaries. Planet. In September 2019, Costa Rica received the Champions of the Earth Award, the United Nations' highest environmental honor, for its role in the protection of nature and its commitment to ambitious policies to combat climate change. Imagine an operation where, by just setting up in Costa Rica, you could be 99% carbon neutral. Costa Rica's electric grid is 99% from renewable resources. We're the only tropical nation to revert deforestation, and today we boast over 51% forest coverage. For us, sustainability is not about hype, it is ingrained in our DNA. Prosperity. Beyond cloud forests, we've moved into cloud computing, data analytics, artificial intelligence, robotics, virtual reality, and so much more. We're a truly technologically enabled ecosystem, a dynamic environment for innovation and R&D, the ideal melting pot for cross-wide collaboration, where manufacturing, knowledge-intensive services, and health and well-being meet to design and build the next generation of life-centered solutions. For almost 40 years, CINDE has acted as a trusted advisor to hundreds of multinationals with commitment to excellence, which distinguishes us as the #1 investment promotion agency in the world, as recognized by the International Trade Center. We look forward to working with you to continue being a reliable partner to our clients and allies in the goal to reach sustainable productivity and investment with purpose. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed today's event.
Thank you, Mr. Sequeira. We will now turn it over to the President of the Inter-American Development Bank, Mauricio Claver Carone, to provide a keynote presentation entitled New Opportunities to Boost FDI in the Region and Strengthen Regional Value Chains. Mr. Claver Carone, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jorge. Let me answer your first question. I hope there's an outburst of nearshoring, and if not, we're going to do everything possible to make sure there is. So that's why we're here. Good morning, and thank you again, Mr. Sequeira, Jorge, and thank you to all the public and private sector leaders with us today, and thanks to CINDE for hosting this event in partnership, a great partner of us here at the Inter-American Development Bank. And let me also extend a special thanks to my friend, President Alvarado, for being with us and for supporting not only this event, but the new and potent opportunities for growth and development in this part of the world, and that's what we're here to discuss. I think I speak for everyone saying that I'm disappointed not to be in Costa Rica, a country that's not only a world treasure, but a model for Central America and the wider Latin American Caribbean region in so many respects. And while the virtual nature of our gathering is a necessity, it's also fitting for the theme that we're here to discuss. The pandemic has significantly altered the way the world does business. Millions of meetings are taking place at this very moment via the digital platforms, the various platforms that we're using right now in order to shrink distances. How and where business is done is changing in other ways as well, how business is done. And one of the key dynamics underway is toward another kind of connectivity and proximity, nearshoring. International firms are increasingly looking to make their value chains more resilient to shocks, both natural and geopolitical. The upheaval of COVID-19 has added historic urgency to the calculus. As president of the IDB, the longtime lender of choice for development in Latin America and the Caribbean, it is my job to seek out and pursue the areas of potential for our region's sustainable socioeconomic growth. What I see today is a major opportunity for development gains in the Americas and for the private firms that are out there doing business in our hemisphere as those global value chains realign. Nearshoring, which encompasses both increased foreign direct investment and development of new suppliers closer to end markets, can help turn this difficult moment that we're all facing into a huge juncture for this region, a seminal juncture for this region. We can take this untapped potential of its workforces and economies and begin to do and execute what can be realized. That's the goal that we at the IDB will work to facilitate, a priority of our investment in the region's recovery and revitalization in the coming years. As the companies represented here will attest, the security, reliability, and flexibility of global and regional value chains have never been more important than they are today. GVCs now represent about half of global trade, an increase of more than 40% since the 1990s. At the macro level, countries with greater participation in global value chains are more productive and more prosperous. Recent studies show that a 10% increase in a country's level of GVC participation leads to an average increase in labor productivity of nearly 2% and an increase of nearly 14% in GDP per capita. Zooming into the micro level, the companies that both import and export within a global value chain are markedly more productive, 76% more, in fact, than companies that do not trade internationally. So let's consider the latest trends shaping these chains. A 2020 survey by the UBS Evidence Lab found that more than 75% of US companies with factories in Asia have decided, or at least are considering, to relocate part of their operations to other countries. A recent study by Gartner reported that nearly half of the leading global companies are currently adjusting their supply chains, and more than a fifth are planning relocations in the coming years to countries closer to end markets for goods and services. That's right. Exactly 1 week ago, President Biden launched a comprehensive review of US supply chains and directed government agencies to identify ways to secure them against risks and weaknesses, an opportunity. Too often, our region's links in these chains have been missing. One measure of GVC participation is the percentage of foreign added value in a country's exports. Between 2017 and 2019, the average Latin American country reported exports containing 18% of foreign added value. Now compare that to 33% in the average Asian country or 43% in the average EU nation. We lag in regional terms as well. In the same period, the average foreign added value from intra-regional counterparts in a country's exports was 4%. In Asia and Europe, that figure surpassed 20%. So now is the moment to make amends. And that's what we're here and that's what we're working for without rest. IDB research shows that there are concrete, sizable opportunities for countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, particularly when it comes to supplying the US market. We estimate that if the region were to capture just 10% of US imports from its top 10 source destinations outside the Western Hemisphere of products that countries are already exporting to the region or to Europe, so already happening, not new, the region could increase its total exports of goods by more than $70 billion annually. Fact. Now, it's incumbent upon us to look at this opportunity and decide how we're going to materialize this. Like, if we lose this opportunity, we fail. If Costa Rica, for example, could capture 10% of US imports of medical products and equipment from its current top 10 sources, Costa Rica would increase its exports of those goods by 66% or $1.5 billion worth. Imagine what that means for Costa Rica. Huge opportunity. And by the way, President Alvarado is doing all the right things. Every time I get a company calling me about a nearshoring opportunity, they say, oh, we're going to Costa Rica. So you guys are doing something right, and congratulations on that. So now, imagine the new jobs that could create. Imagine what that means for Costa Rica. Imagine the new momentum injected into the entire industries and innovation ecosystem. The textile, apparel, footwear sector, which generates almost $46 billion in US imports from its top 10 sources, presents an excellent opportunity for Costa Rica's neighbors in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador as well. If these countries captured, in the Northern Triangle, as we call it, if they captured 10% of this market, they would increase their exports to the United States by more than fourfold. Like, talk about changing the Northern Triangle. Talk about an investment plan for the Northern Triangle. That in itself is it, fourfold. So imagine how that in itself can alleviate poverty. Imagine how that could help communities and entire generations that have been so much affected by COVID-19. A little bit further north, in Mexico, the auto industry has enormous potential to provide more US imports, while Brazil can become a higher flyer for the aviation sector. By the way, not to mention, talking about these supply sectors that there's a review on, rare earth. It's the largest, China and Brazil, world's largest producer of rare earth minerals. Huge opportunity there, and particularly as the United States is looking to strengthen its supply chains. Of course, these outcomes will not appear simply because the opportunity exists. To make them happen, we're encouraging and assisting our member countries and working with leaders like President Alvarado to pursue the 3 I's: investment, infrastructure, and integration. Countries must implement aggressive strategies to promote exports and attract investment in nearshoring. Our research shows that every dollar invested in export promotion programs in the region generate up to $45 in additional exports. So great investment you have there. Costa Rica has proven the power of programs designed to attract foreign direct investment. The IDB has found that every dollar Costa Rica has invested in such programs has yielded an extra $41 in FDI. That's an impressive figure. And as that suggests, the region has much to learn from Costa Rica, and there's much about CINDE worth emulating. So congratulations on your work. In 2019, the agency was ranked as the world's top institution for attracting FDI by the International Trade Center. The prior year, Costa Rica made headlines when Hewlett-Packard launched a new global service center in San Jose, which led to 1,100 new jobs. Other top-tier companies that have come to Costa Rica with CINDE support range from Intel to 3M to Amazon to Bayer recently, and I just saw news about Panasonic. Congratulations. Of course, there must be substance behind the investment strategies, as Costa Rica has done and continues to do, pursuing structural reforms to reduce corruption and to improve regulatory quality, and investing in human capital makes all countries markedly more attractive as FDI destinations and for this value chain realignment we're seeing. Adequate infrastructure, also a prerequisite. Our countries must develop sustainable infrastructure that reduces the time and cost and increases the competitiveness of trade. And that includes roads, ports, airports, and border crossings. When the IDB helped modernize the Peñas Blancas borders between Costa Rica and Nicaragua, the crossing time for cargo trucks was reduced by 96%. Now, such investments have an impressive and lasting multiplier effect, and that's important. But in this time, so do investments in digital infrastructure. The digital bridges that are so rapidly catching up to the concrete bridges in economic importance. And one thing takes 5 years and another thing takes 5 weeks. So we need to focus on the opportunities on the digital bridges at this time. And motivated by the potential of nearshoring and interregional trade opportunities, the region also needs to make a push for bold new integration. Today, Latin America and the Caribbean is one of the least integrated regions in the world. Just 14% of its trade takes place internally, compared to 65% in Europe and 47% in East Asia. Modernizing and harmonizing the complex network of 40+ intra-hemispheric trade agreements could lead to an extra $20 billion in intra-regional trade. Costa Rica's journey continues more towards insertion into GVCs, and the future is really promising, and I'm really excited. But as you've heard me say, the results this country has already achieved offer an excellent example of what strategic efforts by public and private entities can produce. Just under half of Costa Rica's total exports are linked to these chains, a remarkable figure in the regional context. Virtually all production of services and almost 80% of manufacturing under the regime, such as the country's free trade zones, are part of these international value chains. These are the kinds of figures that we would love to see replicated across Latin America and the Caribbean, and that we're working to do so. Countries are not alone when they reach such goals. The IDB is supporting them, just as we've supported and will continue to support Costa Rica in order to make economic and structural investments that are needed to connect the dots. And as both CINDE and we here at the IDB are eager to prove, the international private sector is not alone either. Those companies interested in shoring up their supply chains, finding new markets, investing in the future of our rich, diverse, talented peoples, we're here to help them. And the bank's technical teams are currently hard at work to identify more of the best investment opportunities in Latin America and the Caribbean in order to strengthen these value chains. That is one of the priorities of my presidency. We've created and are strengthening a deep toolbox of financial and technical instruments available to our borrowing member countries and to companies from the region and from throughout. Those include sovereign guaranteed loans, guarantees to finance projects that support investment promotion, trade infrastructure, connectivity, competitiveness, and regional integration. Also, for our country members, our policy-based loans help improve the investment climate by enabling the modernization of key sectors and for promoting transparency. So we're actively helping countries finance micro, small, medium-sized enterprises, which are also the backbone of the region's economies and critical pieces to these development of value chains. This isn't about just the global companies or the 40 global companies in our partnership, which we recently signed. This area of our work, which is that entire ecosystem, will take on a new level of attention during my time as IDB president. Our private sector arm, IDB Invest, offers non-sovereign guaranteed loans to support companies throughout the region. They will includes trade and supply chain finance, blended finance, partial credit enhancements, and risk-sharing guarantees. And we're going to be innovative and create new instruments as we speak. We're thinking about it. Our public-private dialogue mechanisms, such as the American Business Dialogue, and online business platforms such as Connect Americas, which you know, are forging valuable partnerships and are widening the frontiers of international and regional trade. Our manager of the IDB's integration and trade sector Fabricio will later share more about the many possibilities later this morning. So please tune in. Now, working with and mobilizing the private sector is taking an increasingly prominent role at the IDB. I ran on that platform and we're delivering. Because the private sector has so much to offer and so much to gain in supporting the region's recovery and growth, we recently convened a private sector partners roundtable on the future of Latin America and the Caribbean. It was a first of its kind event that brought together 40 global corporate executives of the biggest companies. They pledged to work with us and have an action plan on 3 areas that are critical for today and tomorrow: strengthening regional value chains, accelerating digitalization, and empowering women. And by the way, since then, just yesterday, I got another call from another company. We had about 10 new companies that have asked to join this historic partnership and action plan. This commitment is a symbol of new private sector dedication to our region's welfare. And we want the companies here today who, by the way, haven't joined, who, if you're out there, give us a call. There's a lot to do and there's great opportunities for you. And of course, we want you to come to Costa Rica, virtually and physically. In making this pitch, I cannot overlook the aspect that continues to set this country apart on the international stage: environmental sustainability. Climate change is not just simply a critical concern for people, governments, and the IDB, but for international companies as well. And they're increasingly intent on meeting their environmental and social responsibilities. We should not overlook the fact that bringing value chains closer to home and strengthening regional trade often means reducing our carbon footprint. So it's also good for the environment. Nearshoring is also good for the environment. It's common sense here. Nor should we overlook that investing in a region hit particularly hard by the pandemic also means changing lives, building communities, and creating the ethical, sustainable legacy that every shareholder can be proud of. The IDB is witnessing the effect of COVID-19 on the development gains we've helped enable already in Latin America and the Caribbean. but we're also seeing highly promising opportunities, exciting opportunities, and new momentum to not just make up lost ground, and as we presented in our Vision 2025 Reinvesting in Americas, but to break new ground. We intend to be a stronger partner than ever to Costa Rica, to the wider region, and to the international private sector to make this a time of opportunity for expanded trade across the hemisphere and for sustainable, inclusive growth. And that's my commitment to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Claver Carone. And now it is an honor to present the President of Costa Rica, Mr. Carlos Alvarado. Mr. Alvarado.
Thank you very much. It's good to talk to you all. Thank you, Mauricio, and thank you for your welcoming words. Very passionate leadership, which I congratulate. That's what we need on the region. Thank you very much. I commend your leadership, and I see it's going on the right direction for the region. Thank you very much on that. It's really inspiring. Also, thank you for Jorge for his welcoming address. And the problem is, on the good hand, you're making both my work so much easier because you've said it mostly all. But the problem is, how can I add value to this conversation on nearshoring and the future and prosperity of our region? So my effort is going to be how to add value to your inspiring and inform words. So I want to talk about let's call it the near future, and what I see is going to happen on the region, and which are the challenges and which are the opportunities. So if we have to look back in the history of humanity to a period that is going to resemble what it's going to happen, and it's not going to be exactly the same, but we can take some learnings from that. It's going to be the 1920s, after the First World War and after the Spanish flu and the pandemic. So what happened there? And I think we all sense that ourselves. There is in the societies a longing for freedom. As we have passed so many restrictions and distance, there is a strong longing from freedom. So already sociologists and psychologists are talking about what the impact is going to be in the months to come, particularly after we finish the vaccination and we have the inmunidad de rebaño. That means that we have most of our populations protected, particularly with the vaccines. So many have foreseen that it's going to be an increase of consumption, regionally and globally. Also an increase in tourism. So we have to be ready for that because that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity. And as Mauricio has made the case, and also Jorge, countries and companies are looking for more resilient, more strong value chain. And also that's why nearshoring has become more important in the discussion. And it's already happening. As Mauricio mentioned, in our case, in Costa Rica, just yesterday, Panasonic informed that they're going to expand their operation in Costa Rica for several reasons. One, it's, as Jorge mentioned, our clean electric grid, because 99.5% of our electricity is already clean and renewable. So that is online with their pathway in their own plan for decarbonization. But that's also a strategic move for nearshoring, leveraging on the operation they already had on Costa Rica. Similar in the case of Intel, that Intel in 2014 moved certain of their manufacturing operations out of Costa Rica and just leave the part of research and development here. But then the last year, they informed they're going to reinstall parts of the manufacturing back to Costa Rica following this strategy of nearshoring. So the case is we're going to see a expansion probably on this longing of freedom and on consumption, but with a strategy for nearshoring, for more resilient value chains, and also with another perspective It's not only consumption that's going to be expanding and, let's call it this way, using more fossil fuels to make it grow, to make it bigger. It's not going to be that way, because now there's a conscience also brought by the coronavirus that there is another global threat to address, which is climate change. So this expansion in consumption, in longing of freedom, is going to be side to side with a awareness, particularly on the developed world, but also in the developing world, of how these lifestyles, this consumption, the societies have to make it in a clean, sustainable manner. So it's not going to be growth as we used to know it. It's need to be a new green growth, and consumers are going to be demanding that. That's why, in our case, Costa Rica becomes a key ally, not only because, as Jorge mentioned, we were champions of the earth on 2019, it's because a legacy that we've built building for decades on our national parks, on our forest coverage that we recovered, also on our decarbonization plan that we launched in 2019. It was the first on the world and aligning the Paris agreements. And currently, with all our strategy looking for not only decarbonization, but for protection, we are leaders with France and the UK of the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People. So that's part of our core strategy. And that can be and must be aligned with the strategies from the companies, because we know that the companies have their own sustainability and decarbonization strategies. So we become a key ally. We want to be partners on this to make things happen. And as we said, we offer our clean electric grid, which is already in place. For example, any vehicle you plug, electric vehicle you plug in Costa Rica from our grid is going to be 100% clean and renewable because it's a clean electricity as well. And that won't happen in any other part of the world besides Iceland, I believe, and Sweden. Also, for companies, this expansion of consumption and the willingness, the longing of freedom is going to manifest in a change of how we perceive areas, particularly areas such as related to the health systems and to, let's call it the clusters related to pharmaceuticals, the cluster related to medical devices and health. Why? Because before COVID-19, the discussion was very focused on technologies which are still relevant, but such as blockchain, artificial intelligence. And now we have a very strong awareness of how critical the pharmaceutical, the medical devices, and other similar industries are. And why? It's because humanity had to develop vaccines in less than 1 year. So in Costa Rica, we also can offer, not only being our first export medical devices, but also we're pushing to have a cluster and a hub of life and sciences, because we have also the talent and the people to do that. So those are lots of opportunities. I fully agree with Jorge mentioned people, planet, and prosperity. People, we're investing in people. I put it this way, plainly, our oil and our gold is our people. That's the best we can offer. And that's why we educate them. We just recently reformed the law of the training institution of Costa Rica, which trains 160,000 people a year. We reformed the education system. We have a plan for in 2040, all students in Costa Rica will be bilingual. We have this plan that training teachers, we become a member of the OCDE, also to strengthen our capacities, but mostly focus in people and in talent. That we can offer is talent, human talent. And that's what the future in the world requires. As in planet, I have mentioned already what our strategies are. And prosperity is because we think that linking those together can make firms more prosper and create more jobs in Costa Rica and create a better world as well. Just to point out several results, because I know that the guys on the firms and companies are guys about numbers and results. It's about the bottom line. If you look at it, we have one of the lowest rates of mortality in the world, while having one of the lowest decreases of our growth of GDP. That was last year minus 4.5, when in the region it was minus 10. And at the same time, we have one of the, our measures never came to a lockdown. We never apply a lockdown. That means we were applying targeted measures with a low mortality rate. Our hospitals were never surpassed by the COVID-19. And at the same time, the hit in our growth was even less than in the region. So those are the results we're aiming. What are several challenges that I see? There's a longing of freedom, but also the pandemic has shown a widening on inequality in the region. And that's a threat. Why? Because it can produce, it can harm stability in the countries. It can harm democracy. And we need to be very aware of that. We need to protect institutions, as Mauricio mentioned. We need to protect institutions. And the best way to doing it is creating opportunities, is investing, and is creating new jobs and new opportunities, is investing on people and opportunities. So in that regard, we need to take care of our institutions. In the case of Costa Rica, we proudly say that according to The Economist, we are within the 23 full democracies of the world, ranking 16. So we work a lot on our political stability, on our macroeconomic stability, also to be reliable partners to companies that come here, to provide the rule of law, to have the certainty that regardless of the party in government, you can have a stability. And we have a legacy, because many of the firms that have been established here have been, some for decades, some for a couple of years, but still the regime and how we work with companies remains the same, thanks to policies such as CINDE and others. So to sum up, I see a great opportunity of rebirth coming from the pandemic. Nearshoring and human talent can come hand in hand, and we can make great things happen. The numbers that Mauricio showed are really inspiring, but it's true. We need to do our homework and to work together to make this happen. We are passionate about this because this means jobs, this means prosperity. Also, from a regional standpoint, the nearshoring means strengthening the whole of the region with prosperity, not outsourcing the prosperity, but building it within the region. It's going to make us safer, stronger, better. Many of this is obviously linked with the US economy and Canada economy, but as we see in the US economy, prospect is improving day by day. So there's also a lot of hope. And it's true, as Mauricio mentioned, that we need to work that interlinks between our own economies. And that's also a pending task. But I want to thank Inter-American Development Bank for organizing this, CINDE. As you've seen, we are very passionate about this, and I can keep talking a lot, but I hope this session, this webinar, provides more insight, valuable insight for all of us. And once again, thank you all for attending. Thank you, Mauricio, and also, again, thank you for your inspiring leadership. And also, Jorge, thank you for all the work you're doing for Costa Rica. And I hope I added value in my intervention, given that you said all the figures that is to be said about the topic.
Thank you for your remarks, President Alvarado. Before we move on to the first panel, we will have the first 2 poll questions. We look forward to your participation. We will now turn to our first session entitled From Follow the Sun to Outrun the Sun, Driving True Sustainable Business Productivity, which will be moderated by Matt Highfield, Managing Director for Finance and Enterprise Performance at Deloitte Consulting LLP. Joining the panel, we have Charlie Phillips, Senior Vice President, Global Services and Support at Akamai, and Leonardo Framil, Market Unit Lead for LATAM at Accenture. Mr. Highfield, thank you for joining us, and over to you.
Very good, thanks. First of all, good morning, everybody. It's great to see such a big virtual turnout for this first Smart Talk panel discussion. A quick thank you to start with to President Alvarado, Mr. Clave Caron, and Mr. Siqueira from CINDE, and also for Pilar for inviting us to this panel today. Let's spend a couple of moments with some very quick introductions. I will go last, but I'd like to have my 2 colleagues that are with us today, Leo from Accenture and Charlie from Akamai, who've kindly agreed to join us this morning and share their expertise. To start with some brief introductions, please. Leo, why don't you go first?
So thanks, Matt. So good morning, buenos dias. It is a pleasure to be here with us. So I want to say thank you to the President, Mr. Carlos Alvarado, also to Mr. Jorge Sequeira and Mr. Mauricio. And I have to say that I'm even more bullish after hearing you this morning. And I'm currently, I have the responsibility of leading Accenture in Latin America. We are operating in 8 countries with more than 30,000 people. And Costa Rica, it is a fantastic trajectory and story that I will be more than happy to share with you. So thanks and congratulations to CINDE and Inter-American Development Bank for hosting this seminar. So back to you, Matt.
Thanks, Leo. Charlie.
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to be here this morning as well. Really a treat to hear from President Alvarado, and I'm looking forward to the discussion here. I'm with Akamai. We deliver internet content and secure content for customers of ours. We have been within Costa Rica for about 8 years. We're significantly smaller than Accenture, but we've got about 400 people based in San Jose, and it's been a very, very good fit for us. We've developed that and continue to add responsibilities there over the past 8 years and grown it pretty rapidly. So we've had great success working with the teams down there. I've been now 7 or 8 times in the past couple of years, and really am bullish as well about the future for Costa Rica. So thanks, Matt.
Very good. Thanks, Charlie. So let's jump into our discussion here. I'm going to start with you, Leo, and I want to talk a little bit about your journey so far in Costa Rica and Latin America, and what role it plays in your footprint. I think we've observed gathering momentum around the expansion of shared services and global business services composition from low-cost transactional activities into far more value-added activities. I first came to Costa Rica in the early 2000s, where there were a couple of call centers, and there were some even fewer shared service centers, and they were very transactional in nature. Tell us a little about your journey in Costa Rica and some of the logic behind any more value-added activities you're driving into your Costa Rican center.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Matt. So it has been a very intense and successful journey in Costa Rica so far. Let me share some interesting facts with you. So we started to operate in Costa Rica in 2012 through the acquisition of Aventa Worldwide. At that time, our operation had 300 employees, and the services offered were specific to digital marketing, including web development, project management, and graphic design. But the fact is that after 9 years, we have increased our headcount, more than 600%. We don't have any other country that we faced, let's say, a growth like this one. Okay, and so we moved from the original 300 people in 2012 to right now 12,200 employees, and we have 300 open positions. So in probably 1 month from now, we're going to be 2,500 people. And based on our growth forecast, we expect to land with more than 3,000 people by the end of 2021. This is a fantastic landmark. And from the headcount perspective, we'll position Costa Rica as our third largest operation in Latin America, behind Brazil and Argentina only, but ahead of countries like Chile, Colombia, and Mexico. And one additional fact, and I think that is a clear demonstration of our clients' interest in nearshoring alternatives. In 2020, we received more than 150 client visits, most of them virtual visits. And we are currently providing service for more than 50 world-class companies around the globe from Costa Rica. So in my view, so this remarkable growth is a clear consequence, one, of the digital transformation acceleration, for sure. But in the case of Costa Rica, no doubt that is completely related to the quality of the human capital that allowed us, through a continuous innovation mindset, to evolve our operation from, let's say, traditional service to more transformational and tangible service, delivering business outcomes for our clients in areas like data-driven marketing, campaign experience, digital finance accounting, and platform experience. I would say that Accenture Costa Rica became a global digital production center of excellence. And we are even more bullish about the future because, as was already talked, COVID-19 brought profound and lasting implication for business. Companies can simply reduce costs and freeze. They have to accelerate to new levels of digital performance to serve new customers' expectations and pivot to new growth opportunities. This is totally connected with the core of our business in Costa Rica, where we want to support our clients to help them to accelerate that digital journey. Back to you, Matt.
Thanks, Leo. Charlie, share a little bit about your journey. You know, I think you've been in the market for 7 years or so. Where did you start and where are you now on that journey?
Sure. So we started with a technical support group that is a little more than a call center, but it's one of the more junior roles that we have within Akamai. And we've expanded that over time to add professional services that we serve out of Costa Rica. We have opened a cybersecurity center, and we found good security resources there. And we're to a point now where we've got technical project management and engagement managers. We're continuing to kind of move up the scale of what we do within Akamai from a professional services perspective. And, you know, the group is very engaged. We've gotten, you know, great feedback, you know, one of the great places to work and other awards. It's a very socially conscious team. And we've done a lot to make sure that we're providing opportunities for groups like Women in Technology, working with the Fund de Vida and Youth with a Mission and other organizations down there, because we found such a dynamic and engaged workforce. So we've been really pleased. I mentioned that we're a little over 400 people now. That growth has been very rapid for us. It's the largest center that we've got in Latin America. We have offices in Brazil and Argentina as well, but Costa Rica is actually the first place we went and the largest by a pretty significant amount. So, you know, overall, it's been a very, very positive story.
Great, thanks for that. And I can pile on a little bit. I mean, we've done a number of projects for clients in the last couple of years that are looking at second and third generation location selection, which is what we call it, where organizations, you know, initially hypothesized that these were going to be low-cost transactional centers, and that they're now saying, okay, well, what more can we do? Can we turn these into centers of excellence, not necessarily removing the transactional component, but really moving up the value chain in a multifunctional fashion? So that's certainly good news for the nearshoring industry. I'm hypothesizing. We talked to a lot of clients about the impact of COVID. In a post-COVID world, what can be delivered truly remotely? I think that COVID has forced our hand a little bit. And it's very difficult to say after having been working out of our homes for the last year that people need to be in the office for absolutely everything. So this is really challenging some of those norms about what can truly be pushed, outside of the home office. Let me move on a little bit. And Charlie, I'm going to ask you a question about measuring success. I think in past years, it was a fairly simple task. The primary questions were, are we managing costs? Are we driving margin? Are we keeping our customers happy? Almost a race to the bottom, if you like. Where can we do this quickest and at lowest costs? As we talk to our clients at Deloitte, these continue to be bare minimums. But how have you seen the measurement of success and Akamai's return on investment change over the years? How do you measure it now, and how do you see yourself measuring success in the future?
Yeah, I mean, so we still do a lot of the traditional measures you talk about. We measure the margin of our team, and obviously Costa Rica is a very cost-effective place for that. And we measure customer success, and we've got a number of surveys and different ways to do that. I think a lot of what it comes down to, though, we really focus on customers and we focus on employees. And so I think the employee satisfaction scores that we get are very important to us. We feel that if we've got a motivated and happy workforce, they're absolutely doing a better work for customers. And so, beyond those measures, we're also implementing customer success as sort of a function. And I would say that, we aren't measuring Costa Rica differently than we're measuring any other geo. So, we don't have separate measures for Costa Rica or other two centers of excellence versus the US, for instance, or EMEA. It's really, we expect that they're going to be able to deliver at the same level. And we found that it's close enough that we're not, we don't have a separate set of measures for Costa Rica.
Okay. Leo, your thoughts?
So this is a very good question, Matt. And our latest research shows that CFOs and are evolving their roles and perspective to measure the ROI using new perspectives. Now, we cannot say that they are not the economic guardians anymore. They see them also as, let's say, responsible and architects of the digital strategy. And I have to say that based on everything that we are living today, companies from different sectors need to develop the ability to reach a level of agility that is a true match for volatility. So all the companies need to embrace change, accelerating their digital journeys and creating lasting 360-degree value for all stakeholders across their enterprise. And right now, Accenture is pioneering what we call 360 value meter. There is a framework for ourselves and also for our clients to define and measure how we are transforming and reinventing the business, bringing in additional to the traditional financial and client KPIs, new elements like talent reskilling, client and employee experience, delivered innovation, inclusion, diversity, and sustainability. So this framework has redefined the way we think about sustainable value creation in the face of disruption, new business models and talent gaps, and is driving fundamental change in the way we engage and we work with our people and our clients.
Very good, thank you, Leo. I'll also, I think what we've talked about with Leo and Charlie today is kind of almost steady state measures. I think one thing that we found with clients, and I brought a couple of clients down to Costa Rica a few years ago, and one of the things that they use to measure success is upfront risk. As you start cutting processes and roles and functions from one geography to another, there's a lot of risk associated with that. And it was eye-opening for me, and one of the criteria that this client wanted to measure was, look, what are the capabilities of Costa Rica and the competing markets to help them who'd never been through one of these shared services, GBS transformations and migrations before. Is the talent in Costa Rica expert in these migrations? And I think that's something that is often overlooked. There's a lot of risk to the individual that's selecting the location and the organization in that migration period. And Costa Rica demonstrated for this client, and has demonstrated, I think, for a lot of clients, that there are people who are experienced in this. And if you think about the sending location, there are very few people within sending organizations that have actually been through this. It's the receiving organization that often coaches people through that process. So I think that that was a learning about Costa Rica and some other markets that is increasingly a measure of success, you know, the smoothness of that, that transition. I want to talk a little bit, I want to throw another question at you, Leo. You know, you have a very sizable global footprint. I believe you're over 500,000 now in over 50 countries. A little bit of homework on you guys. And tell us a little bit role Costa Rica plays in your global delivery network and why. And I want to talk about it from a couple of angles. First of all, what capabilities do you think that this market specifically offers Accenture? What does it do well? And at the same time, and Pilar and CINDE and my friends there will know that I'm bound to ask this question, you know, what does Costa Rica need to be focusing on in the future to retain its position in the region and your network?
Okay, now that's one more great question. So let me start saying that we really see Costa Rica at the intersection of sustainability, business, and technology. So it's a very strategic location for Accenture because it works very well as a people-centered hub where our clients have direct access to top talent with competitive skills, deep industry knowledge, wide industrialized capabilities, certifications, and so on and so forth. What is important to understand is that we talked for many years about the war for talent. And right now, I would say that we are really living this. So there is no enough talent for all the change that we need to do in a very, let's say, with acceleration, let's say the way. Okay, so and the fact that Costa Rica is a place that we can assess this top talent, it makes a huge difference for us. In addition to it, the geographical proximity with most important economies of the continent, the competitive rates, and some benefits that Costa Rica offers to worldwide organization is something that is also very relevant for us. And in addition to it, I would refer here to what the President, Carlos Alvarado, mentioned, that is the essence of Costa Rica, you know, that people, planet, and prosperity are. This is really making a huge difference in terms of quality of life. It is not a surprise that World Economic Forum in the 2019 Global Competitiveness Report said that Costa Rica is in the first place in skills of current and future workforce in Latin America. So, and this is also important because when people, you invest in people, it means that they are really more engaged and energized and motivated to work. The level of engagement that we have in Costa Rica, it is fantastic because we need to invest in things that normally companies have to invest because they have also good support from let's say, the government. And when we are living in countries that we have safety problems, political instability, and other things to manage, the companies need to invest much more to have the people engaged on the long term. So right now, our Intelligent Operations Center in Costa Rica, it is enables our clients managing a broad range of service from the creation, development of marketing strategy to enhance client experience, from supply chain related actions to post-sales enterprise activities, including their financial and accounting process. And some comments also to share with you from the last and progress that we made in the last years that we want to make during this year and the next. So since 2019, it also became a site for our Fjord Design and Innovation Division. This year, we start the establishment of a sustainability lab that will be part of our Global Sustainability Innovation Network. It's meant to facilitate the co-creation of solutions for the major challenge that our clients are facing in this regard. And the official launch will happen this end of this year. And finally, we have just started an investment in the cloud service area, where we want to create a center of excellence to serve companies around the world. So in terms of look to the future and answer the last part of your question, it will be critical for Costa Rica to keep its commitment in developing efforts to increase the high quality digital talent pool. Yeah. This is the single most important factor that's going to make a difference. Areas like artificial intelligence, cloud computing, big data, UX and UI, smart manufacturing are key areas for us. One important area also is to strengthen the tech ecosystem. So collaboration is a key element. So it's important to have a strong ecosystem and sustain the innovation and sustainability agendas as priorities for the country development. So that's my perspective about your question, Matt.
Good, thanks, Leo. Charlie, let me turn it over to you quickly. We've got about 5 minutes left. If you can give a quick one there, because I do want to talk about talent in a little bit more detail in just a moment here. But tell us a little bit about the role that this plays with your network and what sister geographies do you have around the globe that you manage and balance work across?
Yeah, so we have 3 centers of excellence. One is Costa Rica, obviously. Another is Bangalore, India, and another is Krakow, Poland. Costa Rica offers a number of advantages. Spanish language is helpful for some of our customer base. The time zone proximity and the ability to get there is really a great thing. President Alvarado mentioned political stability, and that's absolutely true, and it's something that you can take for granted there. I think that the talent pool overall is strong. I think, and Leo, I think concluded with this, that Costa Rica really needs to continue to focus on that STEM education. It's a relatively small country, and I think, the war for talent is real, and we want to make sure that there continues to be a crew coming out of schools who are ready to take on technical work. We've done some investment ourselves. We do a thing called a professional practice where we're actually bringing in high school students and do an 8-week program with them and training. And a handful of them, we've actually brought in to help with some coding and doing some other things. We also have another program called Akamai Technical Academy, where we bring in experienced workers who didn't have a background in technology, but test and demonstrate an aptitude for it. And we then bring them in for a 6-month stint, and presuming they do well, we hire them on. So we are doing some development ourselves of talent because we do that not just in Costa Rica, but in each of the major markets we operate. We figure that we would like to train them how we want them trained, which I know is something that Accenture does as well. And so I think we're trying to do some of that development ourselves, but I think it's critical for Costa Rica to keep a real focus on STEM education.
Yeah, great. It's very interesting. When we work with CINDE and develop agendas for our clients, when we're doing due diligence, often the question is, well, why are we going to a high school? I don't understand why we're going to a high school. We need to talk to the university. And we say, just wait. And I'd say probably 2/3 of the people come out and say, that was my favorite interview of of our week. It's a really bright group of kids and certainly the future of the country. So I want to talk just a little bit more about talent. And Charlie, I want to throw this one back at you. As we conduct a lot of location strategy assignments across the globe, we've observed a shift about how the employees are viewing their relationship with their employer. A lot's been made of the impact that the millennials have had on the employer-employee relationship. But I've seen it now infused across all parts of the organization. So increasingly in tighter, employee-driven markets, interviewees and incumbent employees are demanding a path to both personal and professional growth. They're demanding lifelong learning. Tell us a little bit about Akamai's experience with this, and how have you seen that play out in Costa Rica?
Yeah, so we do, from a pure training perspective, we do a ton of this on a continuous basis. I think many large companies do, but we focus on ongoing technical training as well as professional development. And that's a global effort, and it certainly applies within Costa Rica too. We have seen real drive for social responsibility, and Costa Rica has been one of the strongest places for that, and real a genuine interest and a lot of volunteerism within our workforce down there. I mentioned a couple of things earlier, but we've also got a mobile lab that travels through the country of Costa Rica, talking and teaching young children about internet technologies, Danny's mobile lab. The level of participation of our Costa Rica staff in these types of programs, we've acted as a sponsor of TEDx Pura Vida. We have, participation in many school-age programs down there. And for an office of only about 450 people, they're making a significant contribution. So I think that's one of the things. We've had good retention within our office there. And I think that focus and, allocation of time for employees to focus on those things is very, very important for the generation coming into the workforce at this point.
Yeah, very good. Leo, we'll wrap up with you. I think we're out of time, but when you share some of your perspectives on how you're engaging your folks and how Costa Rica is kind of playing into that commitment you're making to lifelong learning.
So first, very aligned with Charlie's comment. So it is very clear that leading business need to reimagine the nature of work, pivoting the workforce to create new forms of value, and this scaling up new skilling. So in our perspective, to ensure the best for the workforce, we need to really think differently and foster an inclusive environment, inspiring a shared vision of sustainable prosperity for the organization, create new organizational value by innovating responsibly with emerging technology. So a lot of discussions around the robots will replace people, about the algorithms. So things like that. It's very important to talk and explain to the people how we want to deal with this. And as you said, finding even improving paths to success by embracing continuous learning and knowledge exchange. This is another very important thing. Right now, they want to learn, but they want also to share their knowledge. And we need to give the space for this. And also very aligned with Charles' comments, other very important demand from the employees is that companies step up and take the responsibility to contribute in tangible and sustainable way to the good of society through specific programs on this regard. So that's my view. Back to you, Matt.
Very good. Leo, thank you. So with that, we're going to wrap up this panel. I want to say a big thank you to Leo and Charlie. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope everybody that's been participating today has enjoyed it also. And with that, I'll hand back to the moderator.
Thanks.
Thank you for this interesting panel. In our next segment, Fabrizio Perti, manager of the IDB's integration and trade sector, will provide a presentation on the IDB Group's instruments to strengthen regional value chains. Mr. Operti, the floor is yours.
Good morning to everyone in the audience. It's a real pleasure to be sharing this stage with such distinguished speakers in this very important event. A very special recognition in particular to Mr. Carlos Alvarado, President of Costa Rica, and also to our dear friend of many years and host, Jorge Sequeira, and his incredible team at CINDE. CINDE is a world-class investment promotion agency. IDB President Mauricio Claver Carone spoke extensively about the opportunities that Latin America and the Caribbean present for the strengthening of the regional value chains. I would like to pick up where he left off and expand specifically on the toolkit of instruments that the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank Group, both public and private, has to offer to its 26 borrowing member countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, basically all the countries in our region, to support this important agenda for investment, for nearshoring, and for economic recovery in the midst of the crisis which we're living. To support the countries of the region better integrate amongst themselves into both the regional and the global value chains, the IDB Group, as I said, both public and private, has a set of tools that includes both financial and non-financial supports. On the public sector side, and the IDB does most of its lending to the governments, the IDB works with this lending in the areas of trade promotion, of physical and digital infrastructure, of human capital, of innovation, amongst other areas. And those areas that I mentioned are directly related to creating the conditions for the region to seize the opportunities of better, greater trade and more integration. In particular, the integration and trade sector, which I lead at the IDB, provides funding, financing to governments in three main areas: trade facilitation and logistics, export and investment promotion, and regional integration. And we work in these areas, not accidentally. We work on those areas to reduce the trade cost to you, to the companies in the region that want to invest, that want to import and export, because there are information costs, regulatory costs, and of course, logistics and transportation costs. So that's why we intervene in these areas. We're very active throughout the region. And we have metrics on why it's important to do this. And Mauricio Clarcarone mentioned that $1 invested in foreign direct investment promotion generates 41 in additional investment. Well, $1 invested in export promotion by the countries generates $45 in additional exports. And very important for your companies, the big players that invest in different countries, if we're working towards pushing the harmonization, the convergence of the different trade agreements that the countries in our region have, that convergence would mean 11% growth in the intra-regional trade, amounting to almost 20 billion. So we have to work for those missing links to change those missing links. I mentioned the areas, the impact, and I want to mention a few examples. Because we have more than $2 billion in these areas throughout the region. And just to get a look and a feel, and also a conscience for the companies that want to do business in the region of the things we're doing. We're working on border crossings, for example. This is very important for trade in certain areas of the region, particularly in Central America. So we have funded Central America's first modern border crossing at Peñas Blancas between Costa Rica and Nicaragua. Thanks to the improvements made, the technology, the coordination amongst institutions at the border, the times of physical cargo inspection were reduced from 36 hours to 89 minutes. Of course, benefiting exports. This is, of course, exports of goods. And here there are many companies that export services. But in the case of goods, this is very important. We have to couple those hard infrastructure interventions with the soft investments and the trade facilitation reforms. That's why we also have funded the electronic single windows for trade in different countries of the region. In the Pacific Alliance countries in particular, not only have we supported those efforts, but we have supported the interoperability of those electronic single windows. So if you're investing in Chile and Colombia, for example, you will have one-stop shop which communicates with the other, and that reduces the times, the administrative costs in a very important manner. And we have also invested in services, in the knowledge-based services of the region. And that is very important because before, many of our governments did not really support this effort of trade and services, of engineering, of architecture, of animation, of software. Today we're tele-governing, tele-entertaining, tele-educating, and that's a key area, especially after the COVID. So in my country, in Uruguay, for example, we have supported more than 200 companies investing in the country through finishing schools. These are single company, public-private partnerships in which we train the people, the programmers, the young engineers, the architects to work in these international companies. But the curricula, the content of many of these certifications, of many of these finishing skills are provided by the employer, by you, by the company. And that's very important. That's something we are also working in Colombia, in Trinidad and Tobago, in Chile, and in Costa Rica very soon. We also fund projects to improve the investment climate, the climate for trade and investment, which is key, those institutional reforms. These are called policy-based loans, in which the IDB offers financing, which the country then really has that liquidity to use those resources for different areas. But those reforms include, and those we are funding right now, is modernization of special economic zone regimes, implementation of double taxation agreements, key for services, entry into force of new trade and investment bilateral agreements, creation of new national logistics policies. All those are part of this package of policy reforms that are essential for trade and investment. To support the preparation of all these programs, we are currently working, for example, in the case of Costa Rica, providing technical assistance with very sophisticated elements we're putting in an agenda with CINDE at the moment, using technology and using artificial intelligence to detect opportunities, working with talent development, and also with different value chains, such as the agribusiness, because agriculture is not only goods, it's also services. In Uruguay, we export beef, but we export software of traceability of the cattle. And Costa Rica is an environmental powerhouse, and Costa Rica exports services related to the environment. So that embedded nature of services in goods is something that we also have to get, and we have to, I think, promote. On the private sector side, the IDB provides funding to the companies that want to invest in the region. So we're open for business and come to knock on our doors to see about opportunities. We also do a big effort with our IDB Invest, with the private sector branch, to provide loans and short-term loans to the local banks to finance the portfolio of trade transactions of SMEs that do the linkages with the big players. Because of course, the SMEs, the small, medium enterprises, generate most of the employment, are the majority of the companies, but many times their economic activity is through those linkages with the bigger investors and with the bigger players. And for that, we provide financing. And we also do knowledge and applied knowledge that we put available on all these areas to the governments and to the companies. And right now, and in closing up these few minutes I have, we're looking specifically about these new opportunities of regional value chains in a post-COVID world, in which there is a diversification of these operations around the world. The value chains are changing because of technology, because of digitalization, because of resilience, because of risk diversification. And we're taking a deep dive and really a close look with metrics, looking at sectors and specific reforms that the companies require in order to invest in our region. We're working in plans, national plans in each of the 26 countries. Of course, Costa Rica is a key player, not only in goods and services, has a long trajectory. CINDE is world-class. We say it once and again, and it's not because Jorge is our friend for many years. We work with around the world with Irish Development Agency, International Enterprise Singapore, COTRA, and we know also the non-regional agencies. And we can tell you that this is a very important platform in Costa Rica. Finally, the Americas Business Dialogue. It's a network we have of more than 400 multinational corporations and chambers of industry and commerce to provide policy recommendations to the governments. So if you're not there, many of you are, please, also we're open for you to joining this. And Connect Americas, an online network of SMEs, small companies. We have 500,000 registered companies from 186 countries, and that's a very important network for you to link up with the smaller players in the countries of the region for the linkages. So thank you very much. I'm out of time. I'm also passionate about what we do and look forward to working with all of you in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberti. Before we move on to the next panel, we will have our next poll questions. We really appreciate your participation. Our next panel today is called From Lean Manufacturing to Smart Manufacturing, Rethinking Supply Chains to Productivity. This session will be moderated by Hernan Sáenz, Senior Partner and Global Head of Performance Improvement Practice at Bain & Company. Joining this session, we have Hans van Delft, Vice President and General Manager of Industrial Division at Borns Trimpot, and Michael Tucci, CEO at Microtech. Welcome, Mr. Sáenz. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you to Mr. Sequeira, to President Claver Claron, and to President Alvarado for the context. A huge thank you to CINDE, a world-class organization, to Pilar Madrigal and the leadership team for hosting us and hosting this event. Of course, to the panelists and to Fabricio for all that already adding richness. And I do have two distinguished guests, so I will not introduce them so that we can get all the insights that lie in their experience. Both of you have operated in Costa Rica for decades. And so I'd love to start looking back. How did you originally decide to go to Costa Rica? And how has that evolved to what it is today? Hans, I'll start with you. When did Borns set up in Costa Rica? Why did it set up in Costa Rica? And how has that evolved?
Well, good morning, everyone. And Herman, as you already said, I want to thank everyone just to be able to participate with this very unique event. Borns is a company that has been established over 75 years. And in the 70s, late 70s, we started looking at low-cost countries. And when you started looking at low-cost countries, we were looking, of course, in the Asian and all the other areas, but also closer to the Americas area or Europe. And in the 78, we started here in Costa Rica. And Costa Rica has now become a facility that has over 600 people. It produces the core product of our company that was invented by our founder, Marlon Borns, and his wife, Rosemary, the Trimpot. And the initial thought of it was, of course, why Costa Rica? Well, when we start looking, of course, was to save an area. If you look at it, it's a little bit of history, but we were in El Salvador, and then at night, because it was not as safe, the employees took 7 trucks, loaded all the equipment, and went to Costa Rica. And there we established our manufacturing. We wanted to have a low cost, but beyond the low cost, it has the safety, it had the infrastructure, even at that time, and the people were willing to work hard in providing our services and producing products. And today our products are sold and our customer base is over 50,000, 60,000 just for the products that are produced here in Costa Rica. So that really has given us a stability. And then the logistics channels of supplying the United States has always been there. And from not only the United States, but also Europe. So Costa Rica is really, if you look at the 2 key sites that we have over 35 factories, but if you look at the 2 key sites of this key product, we supply all of the products to Europe and the Americas here out of Costa Rica. And it has continued to be a wonderful base for us as it has evolved over the years.
Thank you, Hans. That's an inspiring story. Michael Tucci, the CEO of Microtech, I think you were also considering Asia Pacific and China when you settled in Costa Rica. How did you settle in Costa Rica, and how have you evolved?
Sure. So I reiterate everybody else's thanks and appreciation for being here today. We were a bit later. We started our look, let's say, mid to late 90s. Writing was on the wall for US manufacturers. It's time to start looking for the next home. And certainly we looked at the usual suspects, China, Mexico, so on and so forth. Aside from not wanting to get on a 15-hour flight to see my own factory, we were very clear from early on that we needed a certain quality of labor and a certain stability. And equally as quickly discounted most of the usual suspects because we couldn't build the workforce we need with 20% turnover, 30% turnover. You know, you get a bonus if you show up the second month in a row kind of workforce. Fortuitously, we knew somebody who had an operation here. We started by outsourcing for about a year. And then in 1999, we opened our own facility. We've expanded, I think, 8 times now, culminating in a greenfield facility that we opened about 2 years ago, gives us plenty of opportunity for growth. I will say anecdotally that the fact that Trim Pot was here, Borns, who is actually, Hans, our oldest living client. We've been working with Borns for over half a decade, started with a handshake between our founder and your founder. And I think that was a bit of a nod in the right direction, right? If this type of work is here and Intel was coming right around, they had just came right before us. Being a good company matters, right? There's that safety factor that Hans mentioned. So came for the, insert labor rate for sure, but also stability, which has only become more important as we made subsequent investments over the years. Stability really has replaced cost.
Thank you, Michael. We've heard different explanations and words for what makes Costa Rica special, right? We have heard people, planet, prosperity as one way you say it. You've talked about safe, about stable, good infrastructure and logistics, et cetera. Obviously, both of you have had an extraordinary experience, and that's why you've stayed, that's why you've expanded. Help me understand and help everyone understand the secret sauce. What is it about the Costa Rican ecosystem that has given you such special experience? Why don't we start with you, Michael?
So you can't underestimate the human capital, the pool of which you have to start developing your people. I think there's really a combination, right? Maybe not there's not one specific ingredient, but when you look at the combination of proximity, of stability, of rule of law, transparency of government, logistical access, it really all combines into a very unique value proposition. And I think that we made a big decision point about 4 years ago when we decided to build a new big facility and of course double down here. It was the combination of those, and it creates a stable platform that really, honestly, I did all my due diligence again as if I was coming here for the first time, and there was nowhere. I mean, the US, you couldn't predict inflation or tax rates. In the EU, you couldn't predict unemployment. There really was no, forget about Asia and all that. I mean, if you get 24 months of good visibility, that's great. It's a very, very unique value proposition when you put it all together. And particularly for us, and I know Hans feels the same way, we play the long game in our industry. There's no quick turn. There's no picking up and going somewhere else. We look in decades. And I don't know where else you can provide that value proposition.
That's great, and to hear you're doubling down and you're sort of starting from scratch again, but doubling down is once again inspiring. Hans, there were lots of ingredients in that secret sauce from Michael. Any more that you would add as salient ones that make Costa Rica special?
There was a couple of things that Michael said. People. are very important. And you know, when we initially started, it had to do with low cost and being here. But as it has evolved, today, you know, Costa Rica is not the lowest cost country in the world. But the people evolved, and today we have technology here. In Costa Rica, we manufacture for our worldwide consumption, basically our secret sauce, what we call our circuit or what we call conductive ink or resistive ink that go in a lot of our products. The people have evolved. We have scientists producing these new products or trade secrets here in Costa Rica. And that evolution of people knowledge and having the country not as a low cost, but as people-based and knowledge-based society. And that really has helped us becoming leaner, more effective, and more efficient here in this country and moving away from the low cost. And, you know, just to other kind of, you know, we talked a lot about the pandemic and how that has changed. And, you know, we ourselves, we wanted to minimize the number of people in our factory. So we certainly had people operating from home. The infrastructure was strengthened very quickly from copper to fiber, you know, so that we could communicate very effectively. So it was that openness, willing to change, and the evolution of people that really have strengthened, I think, our operation here. And you know, we have room to expand. We continue to expand and invest here because of that.
That's very interesting, and actually leading directly into one of the questions I wanted to ask you. As we at Bain look at our clients across the world, right? The North Star that used to be called lean manufacturing, no doubt has a new name, right? Smart manufacturing. And technology has really changed what factories do and what they're able to trace, et cetera. Now, some folks like to say, look, locating in Latin America is a trade-off, right? You may be giving yourself a technology or an innovation trade-off versus Southeast Asia or China. Is that true? Is there a trade-off? Is Costa Rica, is Latin America the land of lean manufacturing but not smart? Or is there a misconception there?
You know, I think that's a misconception. You know, we cannot operate on a global basis. Our customers are global. They have alternative sources available. So we have to be competitive, and the leanness of taking cost out of our organization, and we can call it smart, but it's taking cost out, the efficiency of the organization. We have certainly brought a lot more robotics into our factory and the automation. We're actually building automation in Costa Rica at a factory ourselves that are started out by these people. So that efficiency allows us to compete on a global basis. And you know, Michael said it himself, you know, you cannot pick up a factory like we have and move it to another lower cost country. It is too costly, and the knowledge that we have that is locally built up, that's what you need to have in order to survive in the electronics industry. So it is that efficiency, but you need to still have a lean manufacturing that becomes smarter as you move forward. Great.
Michael, I know that your side job outside of being the CEO of Microtech is to be a technology futurist. That is one of your favorite professions. So you look at this all the time. What's your perspective, right, on the ability to innovate, to deploy technology in places like Costa Rica, like Latin America?
So I think it's actually quite the opposite. I think that one thing that Asia will struggle with compared to other regions is real step shift in innovation, right? I don't think there's a pivot on what we focus on in manufacturing, as Hans says, right? It comes down to efficiency and quality and all the same things we've been doing since manufacturing was born. The difference now is we have the tools and technologies that we've always wanted. right? So lean is going on steroids, right? I mean, we have the ability to access whatever we want. We have the, just yesterday we had a quality issue come up, and one of my engineers said, well, I have 600,000 data points to look at. 5 years ago, that would have been 600. So the question is, what do you do with it? And access to robotics, and access to AI, and access to computing power, and access to everything you need to actually achieve perfection in manufacturing. I do believe personally we're circling the runway on perfection in manufacturing because of these tools. Question is, what do you do with it? And I think that's really where the largest gap on the human capital side exists, because it requires imagination. It requires creativity, and not the head down blinders of do it better, faster, cheaper. You have to look at new possibilities. You have to look at throwing out the way we've been doing things, or the limitations, right? The experts in the last 40 years are going to tell you why you can't do all these things. And one of the things we've really enjoyed here in Costa Rica is working with the 20-something-year-old engineers. I can't hire enough of them because they look at YouTube, they go online, and it's done in 2 days, while the experts are still figuring out, all the reasons why not. I think that's something that Costa Rica is going to do very, very well. I'm personally passionate about helping change the mindset here and through the educational system. And I think a lot of the great things we heard early on was just that, right? It is a crisis of imagination more than anything else. And I think that's something where once tapped into, it just hockey sticks. I mean, what you can create in days and hours used to take us decades. So I'm extraordinarily bullish about it.
That's excellent to hear. And I think the last time I heard about data, we've created more data over the last 18 months than in the
history of mankind. I know.
History of mankind, other than whatever stuff is in our DNA, probably. Let's talk about 2020. 2020 was a very difficult year for humanity, a health crisis, etc. Right? If I were to pick a topic that most of our clients at Bain are talking about, it's resilience. And it's resilience because the supply chains that we had optimized for efficiency were very brittle, and they broke. And today, right, trying to get a spot in a container from China is expensive and hard. Some supply chains have yet to come back up, right? As people have stayed in their homes, they've ordered furniture and it has yet to arrive. Hans, I heard from you, right, that you had a very different experience. That during COVID, you were able to stay operating. But so I'd love to hear, like, what was your experience? But also, how do you think about geography as a solution to resilience? How do you think about having operations in different areas, et cetera?
Yeah, a couple of things, and you alluded to it itself. We had the globalizations in the 90s and in the early 2000s, and it is more becoming, through the political situations, maybe more localization starting to become maybe a little bit stronger. And the location of Costa Rica close to the United States and having that infrastructure really makes this a very good place to manufacture. The stability of the people, even during the pandemic, yes, we had to change and make some very drastic protocols to ensure the safety of our people. But then also was interesting, through the safety, people helped out, and we were able to do a lot of things, and we never stopped production any day throughout all of this pandemic and moving forward. Then, being then the closeness to the US and Europe has really been a strength for our company, being able to supply it. And then, you had to make sure that logistically we could get our products out. And, the ecosystem here with tourism so big, and that's collapsing, during the pandemic, but the airplanes were still flying. And that has allowed us, maybe bypass some shortages of containers. But there's a lot of abilities to ship throughout all of this. And, there's always our factory, we've always found innovative ways to making sure that the product gets there on time at our customer base. And that's really what I always look at, the strength of this organization we have in Costa Rica.
Great, that's great to hear. Michael, how about on your side? How was the reaction to the COVID crisis? And more broadly, how do you think about staying resilient?
Yeah, so we very quickly went into never waste a good crisis mode, right? Which you can get a lot done with a big crisis. We thankfully, as Hans, we stayed operational. We actually had a net positive year because most of our products are at the core of what we need: med device and HVAC and automotive, all that fun stuff. But I think that what we saw from a supply chain, all of us collectively, is how many eggs we put in the China basket collectively. But more importantly, I think we're starting to challenge the assumptions of how we make supply chain decisions, right? I think where the systems broke are where they should have broke, right? I mean, it got stressed and they collapsed. So the idea of just find the lowest price in the bottom right-hand corner might not be the right answer anymore if it requires it coming from half a world away. I think I personally did a survey of our top clients over the last year, and part of Hans's local team were involved in that. And, you know, resiliency and security and continuity obviously was number one. But we saw that price. I mean, obviously everybody has to be price competitive, but rounding it out was innovation, was creativity, and new ways of supplying a product, right? And finding those solutions, the workarounds, the plane when the boat, and there was always a way, right? Mm-hmm. And we didn't miss an order either. But I do think we're starting to re-challenge the assumptions. Certainly you cannot replace proximity, right? It's one thing we learned. The automotive has been doing that for the last decade or so, of doing like for like, NAFTA, MENA, and Asia. And I think that's going to play out more and more. I do think that Costa Rica, we're seeing a lot of uptick as companies get away from the usual suspects, because right now you really can't put a price on stability and continuity. And that's what I think, well, what we have to offer, obviously with everything else, that you need to be competitive. But while all the turmoil has been going on around in the world, we've just been under the radar, slowly, quietly, still shipping, no dramas, no massive disruptions. I mean, that's a rarity in today's day and age.
It is. I think I don't think there's any other. I know there's a lot of meetings right now. There's not another one in the world where the following quote from Michael Tucci is, "We did not miss an order either." That is incredible to hear and incredibly inspiring. Once again. Look, a lot of people have focused on COVID-19 and the pain of 2020. So I wanna finish with a question, which is look into the future, look into the new normal. And I'll start with Michael, with you, the armchair futurist of technology. How optimistic are you about the future? What are you optimistic about? What are you excited about? And then we'll close with Hans after that.
I am terminally optimistic. I think more so than anything. I think COVID and the pandemic is going to be a massive positive learning experience for us. But again, if you turn off the news and you look at the real data that drives the world, it's massively positive, right? Again, technology is playing a part in it for sure. But in our world, right, and how we contribute to the world by accelerating the technologies that we all rely upon, we've never had a time like this ever. And it's kind of like a kid in a candy shop, right? We get to play with so many amazing things to help mankind. And I think that's only going to accelerate. And personally, I think that's going to continue here from Costa Rica, because it aligns with the human capital equation of finding smart, creative people, being stable and secure, and no ripples and no drama. And of course, getting access to connecting the world. I think those three things are going to be massive, exponentially positive things for both our company, the country, and the world. as I said to you, the future's already here. We just got to do a better job of redistributing it a little bit.
Right. Hans, any perspectives from your vantage point about what the future, your sense of optimism?
Michael said it very nicely. If I look at 2020, it was our company's best year ever. And 2021 is starting off. And what was for us so good, technology was growing with people staying more at home. While that led to a growth of one of our components that is used in anything that you use for a virtual meeting. So maybe some businesses were slowed down, the automotive was shut down, but we were overtaken with a tremendous demand because of the virtual needs. And I think we're becoming more efficient, and we've taken some of these pandemic lessons learned into our business. You're going to have more virtual meetings, and it's not going to replace going back to all face-to-face meeting. It's going to be an addition. We're going to become more efficient. And that efficiency, and we talked about lean, I also feel people, are going to be better educated, and they want to provide more innovations in it. And, and I find that we didn't talk much, but Costa Rica is the employees, the education system that the government provides. That was, I believe, the second constitution that really about everybody has to be educated. And I feel these strength them, innovating the people themselves, is what you need in order to bring that sustainability for us. And, so I feel the human aspect, the location, the closeness, the strength and the stability that we've had over 43 years in Costa Rica, that I think, and with the new technology out there, I'm more bullish than ever. And I'm very optimistic about the future as a manufacturing company, especially being located here in Costa Rica. And we're going to invest further in our expansion.
Well, Michael and Hans, this has been wonderful. You are in the front line, leading and experiencing, and have for decades. And so your insights and your experience is incredible, right? What did I hear? I heard that you opened up decades ago, right? But all you've done is double down, right? And you've doubled down because the secret sauce has a lot of ingredients that are special and that hardly ever come together in the same way in other places. And that those ingredients have allowed you to go from lean to smart while staying lean, right? And also allowed you to stay resilient, which is great to hear. With that, we will be closing panel 2. Thank you again to my distinguished guests, and we will be moving to the third to the third panel.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. We will now have the last poll questions. Thank you again for your engagement and input. We will now move on to our final session, Exponential Ecosystems to Reimagine Client-Centric Solutions. The moderator for this panel is Joanna Rems, partner at the McKinsey Global Institute. Along with Ms. Rems, we are glad to welcome to the panel Dr. Christian Meyer, CEO for Central America, Caribbean, and Andean countries at Bayer, Todd Lant, CIO at Blackboard, and Kelly Good-John, Vice President, Global Coffee Sustainability and Education at Starbucks.
Good morning. It is a real pleasure to join you in Costa Rica again. Unfortunately, not yet in person, but hopefully very soon in a safer and healthier future. Following the very interesting conversations we have just heard about both the goods and the services industries, we'll now move on to talk about some of the broader topics that are in the minds of many business leaders around the globe. The role of corporations in creating more sustainable, more transparent, and socially responsible supply chains and ecosystem across the globe. So this is really one of those big changes that I think we are seeing across the globe as companies are both thinking and they are feeling the pressure from their consumers and the societies around them to be really thinking about their social and economic and environmental impact. We have three distinguished guests here, as you already heard, Kelly Goody-John of Starbucks, Todd Land of Blackboard, and Christian Meyer of Bayer. And I won't go into the details. You can read more of them on the website in order to make sure that we get to hear most from all of them. And I think we have interesting stories from quite different angles to this story. And Kelly, let me start with you. You lead Starbucks sustainability and partner engagement, partners as you call your employees, and have a long history in Costa Rica. Could you tell us about some of the initiatives you have here and why are you embarking on them?
Sure. First, I want to echo all the thanks to CINDE and the IDB for hosting this event. I've thoroughly enjoyed it so far. Starbucks is a nearly 50-year-old company with the mission to inspire and nurture the human spirit. Last year, our CEO, Kevin Johnson, committed to a multi-decade ambition to be resource positive. So, giving back more to the planet than we take. And for coffee specifically, this means investing in innovation, innovative and regenerative agricultural practices. And Costa Rica really sits at the center of our people and planet positive ambitions. So if I can just share a couple of these examples quickly. Just to put it into context, growing coffee is really hard with climate change, with socioeconomic challenges. These challenges are real. These tensions are real for coffee. And so not only is Costa Rica an important coffee source for us and a retail source, but it's also where we built our first farmer support center 16 years ago. And a farmer support center really is a hub where we can bring all of coffee expertise and knowledge and share it across the industry to any coffee farmer, whether they sell to us or not. And then in 2013, we purchased our first and only coffee farm. It's located on the slopes of the Poas volcano, an hour outside of San Jose. And this 240 hectare farm is really our innovation and global research and development hub. It's designed to help us better understand the challenges of coffee and to share that with the world, including the creation of new coffee varietals that will help withstand climate change, that will be a really good, high quality cup of coffee. I'm drinking coffee from Hacienda Alsacia in Costa Rica right now. And we've developed over 500 lines of new coffee varietals. Again, this is an innovation that we're sharing with the world. We're not considering this intellectual property. We're also really impressed with all of the local organizations such as Earth University that we partner with to build that future generation of agricultural scientists and sustainability leaders. And then the last thing I want to briefly mention is how we're linking what we're doing in Origin to our customers. Last fall, we launched a coffee traceability tool. And this allows our customers, currently only in the US and Canada, but it will expand soon, to scan their bag of coffee and know exactly where that coffee is coming from. Not only where it's coming from, but stories of meeting farmers, meeting the roasters who roasted the coffee. And if you think about the millions and millions of data points across our supply chain, there's over 400,000 smallholder farmers that are in our supply chain across 30 countries. Really important to piece those pieces together. And so we've partnered with Microsoft and Conservation International, as well as the Costa Rica Coffee Institute to build this traceability system. So we're thrilled that we can share this with our customers. They're having a deep appreciation for the origins that coffee is coming from. And so where we can build that connection, we know there's appreciation. So hopefully it's coming through that Costa Rica is playing a very important role for us.
That's great to hear. And as you're doing many of these initiatives, how do you measure the benefits to Starbucks, to your customers, as well as to the Costa Rican community that you are collaborating with?
Yeah, that's a great point. So, we know the issues and challenges facing coffee are not one that just one organization can touch or solve. So for us, the measurement is how can we ensure a sustainable future of coffee for all? And that requires strong partnerships and collaborations across the industry, across government, even with our competitors. We take a very open source approach. So we're sharing what we're learning. So as we look at our farmers better off than they have been from an economic perspective, are we growing coffee in a more sustainable way that's better for the planet? Are customers getting the beverages and the types of coffee, the quality level of coffee that they expect from us? And then for Costa Rica, you know, the expertise and knowledge that lies within the country is so deep and real. And what we're able to do is take that knowledge and share it with the world. So in essence, Costa Rica is helping all of the world's coffee farmers become better.
Great. Well, that's an inspiring story. Thank you, Kelly. Well, let me turn to you, Todd. Your clients at Blackboard, where you are the Chief Information Officer, are not-for-profit organizations who really want to change the world every day in what they do. That's a segment we don't hear as much as we do about the businesses. So could you start by telling us a little bit of what you see happening with your clients in the very tough 2020? Any shifts in their priorities, any shifts on their concerns?
Sure, absolutely. So, you know, at Blackbaud, we serve about 40,000 customers globally that are really mission-driven organizations. So their mission is to change the world in very positive ways. But through that, in many ways, their worlds have been similar to for-profit organizations. So, you know, day one, they were transitioning to figure out how do we work 100% virtually in a virtual world. Digital transformation has been very important to nonprofits, just like it has been to businesses. But the importance of that certainly grew in significance through the pandemic. Many of these organizations rely solely or very heavily on fundraising. And so all fundraising shifted to online. And so those who were able to, you know, take advantage of technology to digitize their businesses certainly had an advantage and a leg up in a space where it got very complicated for others. I think when you step into the program space, though, and look at, you know, different types of nonprofits, the challenges were very, very different. If you were a private school, for example, you're trying to figure out how do I deal with hybrid education and how do I leverage technology to do that. We had some really good examples of peer-to-peer fundraising, like Captain Tom in the UK, where, you know, folks were very, very generous, especially in the health space throughout the year. Conversely, we had organizations like museums that had to close their doors. And, you know, their primary focus had been physical space, physical engagement with people in a particular area. And so it's been very interesting. There's been a lot of innovation. We've talked a lot about technology adoption through the pandemic, but there's also been a lot of innovation. How do I use technology that maybe people already have to do something different? We've seen that in performing arts. For example, you know, most of us have attended a virtual performance of theater or of dance, and that's unique and different. And maybe the experience isn't quite the same, but it's available to a much broader audience, and so that's really neat. So through the challenges, certainly it hasn't been an easy year for many of our customers, but there's been a lot of innovation that's really neat to see.
Great. Yet in your day-to-day job, you really work with engineers in Costa Rica and elsewhere to create technology solutions for these folks so they can do their job better. What do you see happening on the ground with the employees that in Costa Rica specifically? What changes ahead might you expect?
Yeah, absolutely. We're all, you know, everybody's working really, really hard. I think we've seen, you know, we don't view Costa Rica as a nearshore partner. Costa Rica is just a geography that we have Blackbaud employees in. And employees are going through the same challenges they are, you know, everywhere in the world. They're, you know, it's been a little bit of a challenging year for everybody to figure out what the new normal is. Our employees have, you know, valued some of the autonomy they've had working from home. We've worked very hard to help them learn to leverage technology in different ways, to collaborate. On the engineering side, obviously, we've shifted harder and harder toward Agile. Where connectivity is tied to the cadence of how we work. But, you know, we view culture as primary here, and Costa Rica certainly is an area where we've had good experience increasing diversity, increasing the ability to engage across geographies as we've all been remote. And that's been really, really important to us.
Great, thank you. So let me move on to you, Christian. As the CEO and president of Bayer in the Andes, Central America, and the Caribbean, you lead the efforts in the region. Could you tell us a little bit about the way Bayer globally is thinking about sustainability and your broader social and economic impact on the communities around you?
Many thanks for that question, Jan. And also from my side, good morning. It's a really big pleasure to be invited to this conference among other so distinguished speakers that I could follow in the other panels. So for Bayer, maybe if you allow me at the beginning, for Bayer, Costa Rica is we're not the new kid on the block in Costa Rica. We've been in this region, in this country for more than 4 decades. And we have specifically been increasing our investments and in our development in the country over the last 10 years. And I want to say a special thank you to Jorge and his great team from CINDE, who have really turned into true allies and strengthened our Bayer footprint in the country. And you heard about Bayer probably before. We're very committed to science. Science is part of our day-to-day DNA we have. And if you just look at the facts and the challenges that we see in this world, by 2050, we will have more than 10 billion people who need to be fed without further straining the environment. In addition to that, we have an ever-aging population that will demand better and more innovative health solutions. And here is where we as a company, as Bayer, have established a vision, which is saying health for all and hunger for none. And with this vision, we want to tackle one of the very ambitious sustainability plan with targets based on health, nutrition, overall on these 2 topics, but also on climate action and innovation. And if I just touch the topics on health and nutrition, because they're very relevant in the sustainability efforts, we have come up with a sustainability plan, which I call the 100 million plan. So in our agricultural business, in our crop science division, we want to support 100 million smallholders in low and middle income countries. We want to create conditions, we want to create or educate populations in the use of innovative seeds and crop protection products with the idea to improve sustainability. In the consumer health business, we want to expand our access, again, to 100 million people in vulnerable communities and help them in favoring nutrition initiatives and campaigns, as well as self-care projects. And in our pharma division, which I know very well, we want to provide 100 million women in low and middle income class countries with access to modern contraceptive products and devices. So increasing the availability and the affordability of products in these markets is a big contribution we can make.
Wonderful. And do these global efforts, how do they translate in what you are doing in Costa Rica? Any examples there that you could share with us?
There are many examples, and thanks for that question. I mean, just to pin down a couple of activities that I think are worth sharing. So, for example, there is a project for entrepreneurial women that we're doing in Costa Rica, in Cañas. It's a partnership. It's done in partnership with the local government, where volunteers from Bayer professional volunteers are training women entrepreneurs how to boost their economic ambitions during the pandemic. Then we support heavily the Costa Rican Red Cross. So this is happening during natural disasters, where we have been engaged in strong product donations over the past, but also during the pandemic, during the COVID pandemic, we have provided an economic contribution for the purchase of security implements. You might have heard in Costa Rica about the initiative Ecological Blue Flag. It's a recognition of the fulfillment of a robust environmental program, and it's shown with the blue flag, and it's placed on a visible place within the company. And we have a biomedical site and at the Cañas site, 2 locations that have been awarded with this blue flag several years in a row. And lastly, in the farming business, which is very important for our sustainability goals, also locally. So we have engaged in training close to 100 women farmers located in the Pérez Celedón area in Costa Rica on good agricultural practice, sustainability in farming. And it's also done in collaboration with the Promotora de Comercio Exterior de Costa Rica, Procomer it's called. So we're very active in Costa Rica on the sustainability side as well.
That sounds great. So as we look ahead, are you seeing changes in the expectations that your customers or the societies or the governments have on corporations that go beyond just delivering your goods and services, but more on the environmental and societal side? What kind of changes do you see coming ahead, and how that might influence Costa Rica's position in the competitive landscape? Let me start with you, Kelly, and I think I would love to hear from all of us, because this is something that I think I hear from a lot of corporations around the globe, and I think that's potentially something that could be interesting for Costa Rica. So Kelly, over to you.
Yeah, so I think, increasingly it's the role that private sector and corporations play is important in this space. Costa Rica is a leader, of course. The commitment to sustainability makes it easy to really come in, learn. This is what our customers expect. This is what our employees, our partners expect. That we are actively engaged, and it's the way of the future, quite frankly. So as we think about the role of environment, equity, inclusion, we have to prioritize all of those as we advance our people and planet initiatives.
Thank you. How about Todd? What are you hearing?
Yeah, ESG is obviously a very big topic, not only in the investor community, but also with our employees. At Blackbaud, we're early in that journey. We just joined the UN Global Compact. We're creating new programs within our organization, but it's important not only for our customers, obviously in our space, and investors, but also for our employees. And our employees want to be part of a company that values all of those things: diversity, sustainability, security. And so it's huge for us.
And Christian, any changes you see given your look from the global buyer perspective or from across the region?
Yeah, for me personally, sustainability or the entire topic around sustainability or sustainability development goals is much more than just a trend or a recent hype. For me, it's really the fundamental understanding of companies, big corporations, small corporations, that our future is at stake. And it's really the responsibility of this generation to take action. And it's really this combination of many factors, but the responsibility that we all feel, for me, is the driving factor behind that, to combine topics like planet and profit and protection in the world.
Wonderful. And if I can follow up on that, Christian, I think one of the things that the pandemic has brought to the forefront is really the role of health and the importance of health and the fragility, frankly, of it. I think something that many of us didn't think about that before. How do you see the expectations on health, and particularly the role of corporations potentially for health playing out in response to the COVID crisis?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because I think during the last 12 months, we have become really aware how important health is in our day-to-day life. And if it's not there, or if there's at least a risk on health, how much that can actually restrict our daily life. So I think people have come to the reflection that the value of health in the society is actually huge. And if it's not there, what huge impact this can have on economies, and specifically in Latin America, and also countries like Costa Rica. So Bayer is committed to health. Health for all, nothing for none, just to repeat that vision. So the topic of health is having a huge importance for us. It's also a huge opportunity to improve the reputation of health companies in the market. I can tell you that companies, people that work in the health space, they are never driven, never motivated by profits. They are really motivated by helping people, by making a change, curing diseases, helping sick people. That's a huge motivation that I have and my colleagues have in the industry.
Indeed. Wonderful. So I think I've been told that we should be wrapping up on our panel, and I have one last question that I would like to do a relatively quick lightning round for each one of you and hear from you. What will keep you and your business coming back to Costa Rica? Let's start with go in the order from the beginning. Kelly, why don't you go first?
Sure. So what's going to keep us coming back is Costa Rica's continued commitment to sustainability and innovation, a spirit of collaboration, and really this shared vision for a better world.
And for me, it's really, absolutely, for me, it's really human capital, people with the right skill set, with exceptional customer service and communication skills, and you marry that with a lot of passion for what our customers do, and it's a really good equation for us.
For me, it's very easy. If it would be one word, it's the people. Because in Costa Rica, we have talked about the great education, the professionalism of the people. We've spoken about the commitment to sustainability. But maybe we haven't mentioned one thing that I want to point out. It's the great attitude that you find in this country of that people. And if you've been once to this country, it doesn't matter if it's for professional reasons or for leisure. You want to come back. Bayer's in this country for more than 40 years, and we're clearly here to stay.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Kelly, Todd, and Christian, for all your insights. And we look forward to all of you in Costa Rica and beyond, helping the world be more sustainable, healthy, and socially, better socially. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to this final panel. To close off today's webinar, we welcome Mr. Jose Ramon Gomez, Costa Rica country representative of the Inter-American Development Bank. Mr. Gomez, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning. For us, it has been a real honor to be part of this seminar this morning and to reaffirm the commitment of the IDB to Costa Rica and to the private sector, which is an important engine for growth in our country. In these days, when we talk about economic reactivation, it is also important to discuss economic transformation. And this has to do with not only going back to what we already had, but also developing the sustainable initiatives to improve the quality of people's lives in order to take the country to another level and to another position and to take Costa Rica globally. The attraction of foreign direct investments sets within this path because, among other things, it allows the creation of quality jobs for men and especially for women who have been the most affected by the pandemic, something that we have not to forget. We're at a key moment because we can rethink, realign, and collaborate, taking advantage of the leadership of Costa Rica already has in the region in terms of global value chains, which today are much more thoroughly in knowledge and highly skilled labor. The foreign direct investment activity that Costa Rica attracts is driven by our search for cost reduction and a safe business climate with proximity to resources and transportation services, ports, telecommunications, infrastructure, efficiency of electricity supply, quality of educational services, and its worldwide renowned effort to decarbonize the economy. All these factors attract companies that are witnesses to Costa Rica's successful bet over many decades of sustainable human development and a green awareness distinctive in the world. Costa Rica, within its major business environment, can join the trend of regional value chain, in which trade in services is growing 60% over the trade in goods. However, the slowdown in supply chains, the low movement of people due to the closing of borders impacting tourists, the decline in the flow of goods and capital, and the decrease of container trips to certain maritime routes are triggers that would negatively impact the attraction of foreign direct investment. So they clearly must be addressed. At the IDB, we will continue to support the countries and companies to respond to these global challenges and strengthen their sustainability, productivity, providing financial resources, technical assistance, and optimizing the human capital through training, digitalization, and support of the green economy. To finalize, I would like to thank President Alvarado and IDB President Mauricio Claver for the inspirational leadership, as well as our partners at CINDE for creating together with us this space for learning and analyzing all the people who accompanied us. As this shows us once again how our country reacts strategically to conquer its challenges. I wish you a happy day, and thank you for participating in this event, and we'll look forward to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez, and thank you all again for joining this webinar. For the Inter-American Development Bank and the Costa Rican Investment Promotion Agency, CINDE, it was a pleasure having you all today to share this insightful information. For more information about investing in Costa Rica, please write to invest@cinde.org or visit our webpage, investcostarica.com. And for information about IDB's programs, visit iadb.org. We wish you all a nice day. Thank you.